why have we failed? Then if it's all about me, why have I failed? Because I hate to tell you the truth. Because your life is failure. What? Your life is a big failure. Anything that you have ever tried to do on your own, apart from God, will lead to failure.
Yes.
Anything that we try and do and put our hands to that God is not part of will lead to failure. Any job endeavor, any desire that I want that God does not have for me. I have seen ministries start and ministries fall. I have seen preachers and teachers fall, not because of God, but because of themselves. And if you are in a place of despair today and you feel like your life is a failure, I'm here to tell you, it's because of you. Those are hard words, but you can never, ever receive the freedom that God has for you until you accept the truth of the situation that you're in. Husband, wife, child. Well, what did I do? I'm only a kid. I didn't ask for my parents to get divorced. I didn't ask for the fighting. I didn't ask for this. It has nothing to do with your circumstances. It's your outlook. Say that would be outlook.
Outlook.
Outlook determines your outcome. If you are looking at a situation and all you feel like is my life is not fair, everything around you will always be not fair. But if you can always find the place of hope that God has placed you in, you will find success and victory. So many of us are blaming others for our problems when you have the ability to change it. As you are on the potter's wheel today, allow him to mold you. Stop trying to be molded into something else, but let God mold you to who he wants you to mold you. It ain't somebody else's fault. Let me tell you, there's a story in the Bible of a young man, a new king, and a nurse. And this newfound king steps into the land after waiting for 36 years to be crowned, after he was anointed. Finally seeing his enemies vanquished, turning and says, yes, daddy might have tried to kill me, but is there not one person I can find? One person out of the house for the sake of the son that I can show kindness to. And they say there's a boy that's been cast off because during all these problems and all the turmoil, the nurse picked him up. And as she ran with him, she dropped him and he became crippled. And the boy's name was Mephibosheth. And this young boy named Mephibosheth became crippled for life. Why? Because he was dropped by somebody else. And some of you might be sitting here and you've been dropped by somebody else because they couldn't hold you. They weren't meant to carry you. You were too big for them, or they tried to mold you and make you into something that you were never supposed to be. And now you're hurt, angry, and bitter at everybody else. But it ain't their fault you're hurt, angry, and bitter. It's your fault. Because you've chose to carry the hurt, the anger, and the bitterness and not let God mold you and shape you into the man and the woman he wants you to be. Because there are some of you that are sitting out begging for food when God is saying there's a place at my table, no more crumbs for you. But you're fighting being molded by God. And as this potter is on this wheel and he's molding and shaping you, he looks at that piece of clay. And when the piece of clay won't submit to him, he doesn't throw it out. He remakes it. There are those of you that are sitting here that have been just of no use. God has no time to throw you out. He says that you're the one that I've picked. Should God pick another church or God use another ministry because we're not growing like we want it to or how we should be? Or should we not just let God remold us and remake us? Maybe I spoke to a pastor and the pastor looked at me and he goes, I am fully convinced, and this is a pastor of a very large church, and he looked at me and we've gotten such a great relationship over the past couple of years, and he has just spoken so much life into me. And he pulled me aside and he said, Steve, he's the only one on the face of the planet that can call me Steve. Only one. He's got that, but he's got that grandfather to him, so I let it go. Okay, he says, Steve, I gotta tell you, with his big smile on his face, I gotta tell you. He goes, I I am fully convinced that churches are the way they are because of the pastors. And I heard that and I said, Lord, then if the church is not progressing, then I have to look at myself and I have to say, God, continually remake me. Because I can't let my flaws and my failures mar the work of the ministry that you have. I can't let my egotism and my pride interfere with the workings that you want. Then you have to make me again. When did this start? Several years ago. I knew I was dealing with a sin, with an issue in my life. And I asked the Lord, I said, God, you have to heal me. You have to remove this. And over and over, I have begged him. I felt like Paul. And I used to use my sin as a crutch. Well, this is my thorn in the flesh. As a crutch. And this thinking that I had was my crutch because I felt like it would keep me close to God. Never seeing myself free of this thing that was oppressing me. Pressing my mind. Hindering my family. And one day I just confessed it. I came out, I sat my wife down, and I said, listen, hon, this is what I've been going with. This is what I've been dealing with for all these years, all these things. This is what I've been carrying. And this secret has been carrying me. And then the Lord just revealed to me in my childhood how I let a birth and a seed of this grow in. Never forget, I was about 22 years old. I was dealing with stealing. The Lord brought me back to when I was 6 years old. In the little deli by our house, they sold things called chocodiles. I don't know if you ever knew what chocodiles were, but they were the best of both worlds. They were chocolate-covered Twinkies. Best of both worlds. And I used to, let me tell you something, I would pound them. And they wouldn't sell them in double packs. They only sold them singular. And they were about a quarter at the time and didn't have a quarter. And I walked into the store and guess what your pastor did? Evicted it, took it, and it was so easy that every day after school, chocodile. What would I do with the quarters? Save them up. And I stopped. I eventually just stopped, but that seed and that root was there. And for years upon years upon years upon years, that seed would be there. And some of you might be dealing with issues, and it started when you were young. You just looked at a magazine, you saw a videotape, or you saw something, or someone did something, or something interjected in your life, and that root and that seed has been planted, and you have been carrying it with you. Maybe you didn't ask for that person to do what they did to you and hurt you like that, or you didn't ask to be in that environment, or maybe you got caught up with the wrong crowd. I remember, that first time, it's never a problem when you never did it before. Smoking weed's never a problem until you do it. Now, for my wife, it's easy. I hated it. I wish. Didn't have that effect on me. I had bongs of different sizes, and I burnt the car down because we had a propane torch in the back that we were trying to light a hookah pipe and fell and hit a portable gas tank and went up on the Verrazano Bridge. You laugh. I had $100 a week cost me a car. And and this is the stupidity as we're emptying out the car. Don't forget the weed. Don't forget it. And everybody's grabbing everything. Don't forget it. Make sure you still got it. But the issues in your lives and these seeds and these things, they just grow and they grow and they manifest and they morph and they shape into other things. And here's the potter the whole time. The potter's just sitting on his wheel, stirring the wheel. And it's not coming out. And it's breaking and collapsing. And he takes that pebble out. And he starts again. And it's not molding and it's not shaping. And he doesn't look and say, this clay is not of use. He turns around and this clay needs to be redone because he sees something in the clay that no one else sees. It wasn't that piece of clay or that piece of clay. It was this piece of clay. It's not that person or that person. It's this person that God has chosen to use for his purpose and plan. But unless you let him mold you, you will never become the men and women that he's desired you to be. Why is your life a failure? Because you're a failure. You hide by going to church, by living an outward routine that bears no changing power. You live among your brothers and sisters, keeping up a facade of a Holy Spirit-filled life, holding on to a form of godliness, but denying its power. That's what Timothy says, 2 Timothy. You want to reach out. You want things you don't have. You long for a goodness you cannot obtain. You reach out for a happy life, a sweet life, a life of purity and power that never comes. You know that your life has fallen beneath God's plan. My question to you today is, are you ready to change? Or are you blaming God and others? Do you think God has failed you? Do you think when the parents give birth to a baby and they're just looking at it in the crib the first time, Gucci, Gucci, and they're looking at this baby saying, I hope this baby grows up to be the best crackhead ever. No, the parent looks at that baby and says, I have dreams for you. I have hopes for you. The pride of a parent never wishes that their kid, oh, I can't wait till I can just pimp you. You know, you understand? A good parent, a real parent, a loving parent never wishes to befall harm on their child. Do you think that God sits in heaven saying, go ahead, mess up. Mess up. I'm tired of you. No, but God is looking and saying, I have dreams for you. I had hopes for you. When you were born, there was a purpose for your life. There was a plan for you, and you've let it gone astray. Why? Because you've done the things that you've wanted to do. You've chosen not to submit your hand to me. You've chosen to live a life that I don't want for you. There are preachers sitting among us. There are teachers sitting among us. There are musicians sitting among us. There are ministers. There are evangelists. There is a wealth right here among us. But if we do not submit to the hand of the potter and let God form us and change us, we will always end amiss. Always miss the mark. We sit here and we try and hit the mark and we're always missing it. Why? Because of ourselves. He wants the best for you. What is the cause then? Is it that he made a mistake in your life? You might think so. Instead of being poor, I wish I was rich. Instead of being lonely, I wish I had some. I wish I was married. I wish I had children just running all around me. I wish I had a big, beautiful house. I wish I had a better job. I wish I had more money. And I wish, and you think that things will make your life better. When it's not the source of things, it's the root of things. Where is the source of our failure? Look, God is working the wheel. The killer's ready for the pot. What is the delay? The clay won't mold. What is the delay? God has a purpose and plan for us. Oh, how I wonder how I got to this place as a 24-year-old in ministry, serving the Lord. How I ended up here, how my dream, and I had a focus and a vision for ministry, and how I feel my course of time has been delayed by 10 years. Then I began to look at my choices and my decisions, my hardness of heart, my attitude towards others, my disobedience, my choices, me, not others, me. In the midst of adversity, I could have stood strong, but I didn't. In the midst of hardship, I could have prayed, but I didn't. In the midst of adversity, I could have spoke truth, but I didn't. And I look and I say, I could have done. And no, I'm not beating myself up or not to beat you up, but it's to come to that point and find that root inside of your heart and say, enough is enough. I want to be what the Master wants me to be. I want to be fit for the Master's use. I want to be that disciple that God has called me to be. I want the fullness of life that God has for me. Well, then where is the source? What is the source? Why am I where I am? What is the source of my failures? James chapter 4. Verse 1 says it this way. What is the source? What is the cause of the problems among you? Don't they come from the cravings that are at war within you? You desire and do not have.